Hello everyone, I'm Forrest McFreelava, and this is the Ethics of Victoria 2, number 9C. We left off having just won the war of our national survival. We have already just taken the opportunity to move our armies back more or less into decent positions, holding on to the mountains with our full armies and having all of our incomplete forces just grouping up together in the various areas. We have been building up all of our industry at the end of the last episode. We are going to go ahead and produce an electric gear factory as well, since we will need that for this automobile parts plant. Over here we already have a telephone factory, so we may as well also build an electric gear. Actually no, since we don't have that much rubber. We could build steel, which could help in its own way, or potentially a glass factory, which would help. Although it looks like that's making a ton of money on its own, so we'll just kind of leave it for now. Although I am tempted to just be building more of these high-tech factories. It's tempting, although perhaps not the most helpful thing. We could probably just make do by upgrading these factories as they complete. Maybe an aircraft factory would be good. I couldn't really say for sure. We built all the things that made a lot of sense earlier on, so now it's just kind of the things that are left over. We aren't building any liquor factories because, come on guys, we're being better than that. We will build a machine parts factory since we kind of do need those, and we'll just kind of hope that more than a few of them work out. We need to take a lot of loans. Well, actually, we've already taken a lot of loans, and that's the problem. Is now we need to just kind of build up and not go into terrible bankruptcy or anything like that. And it looks like we are doing decently well. We are making something of a profit. We'll be paying off our loans for quite a while. We should probably tax our people a little bit more, although I don't really want to do that. It's better for the state. It's better for them, really. It's better for everyone involved, as long as we are just able to pay off our debts so that when the next war comes, if it comes, which, you know, we can't say for sure it will, but if the next war comes, we want to be able to take enough loans to adequately defend ourselves and not just be, you know, I guess left to the whims of the banking establishment of the world, we'll say. So the best way to do that is to just repay the loans that we already have. That'll open up our route to newer, better loans. And who knows, maybe our people will stop being socialist and will give up this idea of running the economy. Maybe they won't. At any rate, we're going to be doing a lot of factory construction. And we'll just try to keep an eye on it, somewhat. That'll be important so that we can just keep getting all of our people back into their fields of employment. And yeah, we'll spend a lot less money on just keeping everyone from starving to death. Oh, Cherokee nationalists. Unfortunately, they are going to have to be put down, since we can't really run a state if we just let everybody do their own thing. We'll get... Ooh, do we actually want admin efficiency? Not really. We could get all these naval techs. I don't really want those either. Or mass politics for the police state, paramilitary groups, and the doctrine of fascism. Well, we'll get that one. We have fairly low militancy, although it is getting relatively high, relatively fast, just since a lot of our people are unemployed and they are having to pay pretty high taxes at this point. Once we pay off our loans, though, that should resolve itself fairly rapidly. We will build an army up just to get fully up to where we need to be, although that will be in quite some time. Can't really do that now, it doesn't make sense. Let's see, the United States, of course, is still a great power, because unlike in the other Confederacy games, we aren't just smashing them to bits. Where's our Navy? We managed to get it all back home, so that's good. We'll just combine it. And are we still just having our armies manually get leaders? No, they are auto-signing. Okay, that's good. So what do we need to do? We have a few infantry groups that are pretty experienced, so I don't want to just get rid of them. So what we'll do is we'll go attach them to this one army that seems to already be more or less, well, just closer to being a full army than any of the others. We'll probably group it together in Greenville, and that'll be just ready to defend the state if and when the next war comes. So to get that ready, we will need a dragoon, 2 more infantry, and that will make them a full army. And then we will go back to the original plan, which has been, what has it been? It's been a dragoon, 2 artillery, and an engineer. So we have the dragoon, artillery, engineer, and the 2 infantry to fill that army up. We have 10 more groups, so we can do at least, well, I guess just the 1 full group. And, you know, we'll actually get most of the way to getting another one, and we'll just build the last artillery later. And that'll be good. That'll be the shell of a fairly considerable army. And, you know, it actually worked decently well last time around, so hopefully it'll work decently well this time around, too. Keep repaying these loans, and we're actually getting them out of the way fairly quickly since we are taxing the people at a relatively high rate. Perhaps maybe an unfair rate, but no one's, well, I mean, I guess a few people's livelihoods aren't going all that well. Alright, let's see what this is. While women's suffrage has been achieved in the CSA, many other countries still lack the wonder of a modern egalitarian democracy. From time to time, in a debate or at an international conference, it might be good to point this out to other countries, or used as an argument to calm tensions on the home front. I mean, it's really not good to say that you're better than someone else, but it's also probably not that great to say we're so good that you don't need to worry. But we'll do that. We won't get prestige off of just insulting other people. Black shirts, though. The emerging fascist party in one of our states has formed a paramilitary corps, organized with a military command chain, ideologically coherent, and ready to do the bidding of the fascist party leaders. The group is colloquially, I've never been able to say that word, colloquially referred to as the Black Shirts, from the iconic militaresque shirts they have taken to wearing. This trend is new to Confederate politics, and some fear that it might lead to a chain reaction with other parties forming military organizations of their own. Alright, well, let's not do that, so we'll clamp down on them, and, you know, that's really just the same as if we clamp down on any other army group of rebels rising up, although they aren't technically rebels yet. I mean, really, who are they going to fight? The United States? Oh, okay, and we are already running out of rubber for our factories, so we'll try to set up a strategic reserve of rubber. And how will we do that, you may ask? Well, we're going to buy it. And why am I stalling? It's because it took me a while to find rubber on that. So we'll purchase up all the rubber we need, and that will hopefully help our factories somewhat. Maybe it won't. Who's really to say? We're going to be buying the goods anyway, and they are decently important goods, at least in the long run. We'll keep upgrading all these factories that had the great fortune to already exist when this whole thing went down, and to have stayed, you know, solvent, I suppose, throughout. We will encourage people going into factories that we have the resources for and that are actually making money, and encourage them away from factories where those things aren't the case. And we will just upgrade all of these factories since, you know, they exist and it's good enough. Alright, so yeah, things are going decently well. This fuel factory is doing amazingly well. And let's see, tons of people unemployed in a lot of these states. We're going to keep going around encouraging our people to become clerks, and that'll hopefully make this not so terrible for them. At least they'll be, you know, underemployed in an educated position rather than underemployed or unemployed in an uneducated position. So if they do make any money, which they might never do, it'll be slightly more. Alright, so hyperinflation doesn't seem to actually, I don't know why you would get that. So we're just not going to research that tech. We'll research it maybe at the very end. And, you know, I'm pretty sure we'll get, actually it looks like all of these are just going to be naval, which I mean makes sense since it's the naval tech tree, but you would think that some of them would relate to other things. Although I guess even the army tech trees don't really. Oh, Japan is backing Poland. That's kind of interesting. We're only allied with the UK. No one else seems to like us all that much, so we don't really have a dog in this race. So it's Japan versus Russia, and in 1912, so that's vaguely around the time Japan decides it can take on Russia. So we'll see what happens. A treatise on economics. A liberal professor at one of our universities has published a pamphlet on economics that has received serious attention in liberal circles both in the CSA and abroad. The pamphlet is a profound little tract, arguing in eloquent terms the virtues of free marketeering and laissez-faire, and the author is now being mentioned in the same breath as luminaires such as Ricardo and Smith. We could decry the pamphlet as a spurious piece of liberal propaganda, but then again he might have a point. Well, we're going to take pride in it. And, I mean, although we do have a socialist party in office, it's, you know, socially democratic, we'll say. By which I mean, you know, we're not, like, killing people. We're not, like, lining the bourgeois up against the wall. But, I mean, you know, I would argue in real life, you know, this is probably one of the times when socialism, your socialist policies, is kind of necessary, you know? When the economy, left to its own devices, just isn't actually doing the job for people. It's at those sorts of times that, you know, having the entire government just kind of step in and bludgeon its way through economic policy, you know, is fine. Because, I mean, at that point, what are you going to do other than that? Just hope really hard that people are going to slowly, very slowly pick up all the pieces? Like, the entire country was out of business. That's not something that you can just bring the startup capital to unless, you know, you can negotiate on a national scale, which as the national government we're able to do. But I'll stop politicking. Let's see, we still don't have enough rubber for a lot of these factories. That'll probably be the case forever. Electric gear, we'll hopefully get some electric gear. Although electric gear also does need rubber, so that's unfortunate. We are becoming a great power though, so we'll probably go spread our influence on places that do produce electric gear. Not electric gear. Oh, looks like Japan backed down, but we'll spend some of our influence on places that do produce rubber and try to get access to the world rubber market in that way. So that'll be interesting. That'll be our little diplomatic sort of bit. We'll try not to be awful about it, since we are still trying to be good countries, or a good country at any rate. Oh, and we are tariffing our people, so we'll hopefully manage to knock all that off fairly soon. And are we a great power yet? No, we're not. Spain is still ahead of us. That's perfectly fine. We'll get there in our own time. And yeah, things are actually going decently well. I'm happy with how many of our factories are doing well. Some of the more advanced stuff, obviously it isn't doing too well. But hopefully it will in time. Let's look at production and see how we're actually doing. Well, that's not really it. It would be trade. Oh. Bunch of people are fascist, even more conservative. Not very many were... Wait a minute. Okay, yeah, we have a decent amount of socialists, which makes sense since they are winning. Alright, what was I going to do? Well, for one... Oh, we can pass a reform. So the people really want healthcare now, which, you know, about time. We'll go ahead and pass that for them and get our population growth up considerably. We are still the most behind of all of the confederacies. Army and CO training, pulling that through. We will probably want to build tank factories. Can we yet? Doesn't appear as though we can. That'll probably come up eventually. But yeah, all these factories are getting produced, and that's great news. Get these people back in the workforce. Upgrade all the factories that we can, and that'll cost a bit of money, but that's all good. Since we're already in terrible debt anyway, we may as well reap some benefits out of it. And once again, we'll just take a moment to make sure that people try to go to get jobs that actually make sense economically before jobs that don't. I feel like that's a fair thing to ask of our people in their nationally subsidized world. And yeah, you know, the factories are doing well, at least well enough. We're not hemorrhaging money. We're probably paying a decent amount to keep factories going that maybe shouldn't be going. Oh, the Confederate Free Corps. War veterans, disgruntled with what they see as the failures of capitalism and liberal democracy, have formed a Free Corps, an ideological and paramilitary organization ostensibly existing to protect the state and homeland, while de facto promoting a fascist political agenda in one of our states. The Corps has already begun flexing its muscles in local politics, threatening several liberal politicians and maintaining a fairly intimidating uniformed presence in the state. Okay, yeah, we're definitely going to stop them from recruiting people into a paramilitary organization in barracks of our actual military organizations, since at what point are we more legitimate as a state than them? Really, it's the extent to which we are able to organize, and if we lend them that, then, you know, we lose that advantage. So yeah, we're not going to have people join all these crazy organizations to act in a military manner outside of our military. That's why we have a military. If they want to be military, they can be in the military. And we just won't turn our arms against people unless they turn their arms against us first. And I feel like this is entirely consistent, even with suppressing their rights somewhat, in the sense that their rights are... Well, I mean, I don't think you really have the right to form a military organization and then, you know, harass people with the threat of using your pseudo-military force of arms, as that's kind of a little bit far. Although, admittedly, you know, if you wanted to do that sort of thing, it would probably be more effective if you were organized. Which is really the reason governments don't like when people organize in such a way, because it is more effective. But that's a whole tangent. At any rate, our factories are doing, you know, moderately well. We are paying 500 in subsidies. That's not great. We are a great power, though, and that is, by its nature, great. So let's check RGOs, which I think... What does it even stand for? Something output. Something rural goods output. I wonder, it's not rural. Resource good output? Closer. Probably not really what it is, though. Alright, so Egypt has some. Portugal has a tiny bit. The United Kingdom has a lot, but obviously we can't, you know, become a sphere leader for them. Looks like France took over one of these areas. Cambodia, though. Maybe we can get our foot in the door in Cambodia. Maybe in Johor. Are the Dutch a great power? They are not. But a lot of people are influencing them. So we will leave that alone. We'll focus on Siam, too. Probably, a lot of people are focusing on Siam. Egypt, no one seems... Oh, no. Tons of people. Darn. So yeah, it's really going to be Egypt. I guess Portugal. Seems like it's still a rough race for Portugal. But we'll just start influencing all of these states a little bit. Oh, cool. Just clicked off of Egypt. So we'll focus on them all a little bit. We'll go after Cambodia first of all, just since it's the smallest and hopefully therefore the most easily influenced. And yeah, we'll just try to convince these guys that our worldview is right, and that they should be, you know, economically dominated by us more than other states, even states that can, you know, arguably send forces to really help them in situations of need. Brazil and Bolivia are probably the best targets, though. So we will actually focus quite highly on them. Literate, non-commissioned officers. Alright, so yeah, we've done it. Let's see. Infrastructure we can't improve just yet. I don't believe we will be able to until 1919, so we'll just leave that alone. Doctrine of fascism's gonna make a few people bold. That's okay for now. Cambodia. The U.S. is influencing Cambodia. Interesting. Alright, when can the U.S. come after us again? July of next year. So, we're really coming up on it. On the bright side, though, paid off that debt. So let's try to not tax people so terribly much. Seems like we're still doing fine as a country. We will fund our military 100%. We'll fund our military like 65%. And there we go. We're taxing our people as little as we possibly can given our government type. And hopefully we're going to organize our military enough that, well, that they're able to just kind of form together into a more or less coherent sort of group again. Reinforce all of these undermanned armies. We might want to fund the soldiers a little bit more. Oh, and we are still tariffing our people considerably, so we'll just tax everybody at 30%. Try to cut down the tariffs. Alright, so we're doing okay. Naval base max level +1. We'll get aeronautics, since that's a pretty significant tech. In fact, one of the most significant. Alright, and other than that, we're doing well. I mean, the industry could be going better in a few ways. It's going decently enough, though. We're going to hope that we have the socialists in office when this next war comes about, which I know I keep saying win a whole lot. But, you know, I am kind of convinced that it might be a win sort of situation, more than anything else. Let's check migrations. We have 3,000 people. The United States has a ton, just an absolute ton. Looks like we can build tank factories now, which we really should be doing. It looks like our people are trying to build some other factories, and that's okay. They have the right. But we will build at least one tank factory. We'll probably build another one as well. We could implement a bit of a progressive tax rate. We'll chill on that for a moment. So we're trying to do a lot of stockpile purchasing, which, let's see. Yeah, electric gear. We're trying to buy up a ton of that stuff. This is just a thing. We'll send some people some cotton because we're good neighbors. And oh, we already are buying up electric gear. Well, alright. Montenegro's bankrupt. That's a little sad. And we're not hemorrhaging. We're losing a little bit of money, but not so rapidly that it matters to any great degree. Quick firing guns, rifled guns, all sorts of things. Military techs that we're hopefully not going to need to use. Turn off our Navy and our Army views, and also probably turn off factory construction. We have a stock exchange in Malaysia, where I don't even know where that is. All these eastern places I've never actually heard of. Yeah, no idea. I feel like I've looked at... Oh, okay, cool. So it's in North Carolina. Congrats, North Carolina. Population density, they appear to be decently well populated. Let's look at our nationality. We are, you know, pretty Confederate throughout. Still a few Texans, a lot in Laredo. Not so much in the major cities. Mass advertising. Cool stuff, everyone loves that. Oh, and Cambodia and Bolivia we can start to influence and hopefully get more access to their precious, precious resources. Looks like the French haven't really been able to do much about us in Cambodia. Or the Americans in Bolivia. Alright, and we'll get aeronautics fairly soon. Our armies are all more or less back intact. The United States could conceivably declare war on us at any point now. We will cut our military spending despite that. Oh, we can build synthetic oil, although we do have a decent amount of regular oil. I guess we'll assert our position in Bali, since we don't really need to worry about infamy. And we have aeronautics. Alright, and we managed to get completely off of tariffs, although we are still taxing the poor higher than I would like. Let's see. Guess we'll get steel steamers. Now, I don't really want to build a military navy, since that is money that could be spent on not taking from the poor, or really from the people generally. And it's not really like our navy's going to be the decisive factor in whether or not we get attacked. Although, you know, it may be. Can we form an alliance with the Germans? No. Well, what about the French? Oh, they really don't like us. We will increase the relations between us and the Germans. We will argue, let's see, a lot of our people want laissez-faire, and an equally large amount want state capitalism. So we'll focus on laissez-faire, and the people who want planned economy, which don't seem to exist, will be upset, but they don't seem to exist. And no one wants to ally us, which is, you know, always going to be a problem. I'm not really sure why the Germans don't want to, but we'll find that out by looking. And that's the Spanish. Alright, so they really don't want to, mainly because of government, too many alliances, distance, and the fact that they just don't really want to. We have decent relations, and we're an ally of their ally, but that doesn't seem to be pushing them quite enough. The Italians just don't like us enough, so we will increase relations with them, keep going forward in time. -10 with the Ottomans, we will just increase our relations with these guys. You know, there's no reason for them to all hate us. Now, the Americans are surprisingly still not killing us, and that's really good news. Let's see, we can build a ton, actually, of things, so let's get to work on that. Still not any aircraft, but we will be able to at some point. And there we go. That'll be a decent number of these half armies we keep trying to build. And if we get enough of them, we might be able to defend more of our people if and when the next war comes. So that would be good. Once again, moralism. The Brothers of the Revolution believe in atheism, but let's not go crazy with these rights and things and all of that, since we are still trying to be a moralistic society. Not to sound like one of those people who thinks that, you know, you have to have or you have to have religion to have morality. Although, you know, you have to have, like, some sort of philosophical understanding, and religion is a pretty easy way of doing that. Although it's also a pretty easy way of thinking that you know enough and then not actually bothering to figure out the deeper moral philosophy. Well, we do kind of want to support free trade, so, well, it looks like everybody's actually protectionist, so we'll just support it, but just a little bit. Tank exploits. Oh, and the conservative and reactionaries have taken over control over the government. So a few people are unemployed. Yeah, but it's not the sort of systemic collapse we were dealing with earlier. So, you know, that's really the thing, is if we had just left the situation in our own hands. Let's see. A factory in one of our states has become the target of a mild but costly sabotage campaign during the past few weeks, and local management suspects that a known socialist agitator in the area is responsible for this development, as the gentleman in question is known by management to have taken issue with the decision they recently took regarding company internal division of labor. Alright, so they've been sabotaging it. Socialists basically in charge because they fired somebody. I mean, there really isn't anything wrong with that. So, yeah, I mean, you fire a dude, especially, I mean, like, you can't really say, no, you shouldn't have fired that dude, if his response to being fired is that he goes and tries to burn the place down or sabotage it in some other way. I mean, because really, I don't know, that's not a good show of character. So yeah, we're losing an actually considerable amount of our employees in various states. Wow, yeah, some of these areas are just not doing well economically, and that's not great. A lot of our high-tech, high-end factories are doing poorly, especially in Virginia, which was supposed to be the hub of those sorts of things. A lot of the lower-tech things are doing well, though, and a lot of the factories in general are still doing sufficiently well. Oh, what is this? Huh. Oh, okay, so they are just pushing deeper into China. That's a little problematic, but not so much so. Vietnam might get their independence, which would be really cool, since they do have a little tiny bit of rubber that we could start to, you know, negotiate for. And that would be good. Which, you know, it's kind of interesting how... I mean, you can see why people would press for free trade when they don't have access to these resources on their own. I mean, you could make the argument that that's basically what the United States did after World War II. And that is actually what we did, was basically say, well, you know, we don't want to have to deal with negotiating with these giant empires to get these goods, so we're making free trade the world rule, or the world order, and we just happen to have the best negotiating position. Which, you know, you can't really say anything negatively about that, because, hey man, could be worse. But yeah, I don't know, it's a weird thing. All of these big international things are weird things. And let's see. So the British are still our really just fantastic ally. The Americans just absolutely hate us. We will attend the 6th Olympic Games, which appears to have been in the United States because it increased our relations with them. So we're going to just keep that up. We'll keep trying to mend fences with the Americans. I mean, there's no reason that these two great republics should be foes. Meanwhile, let's see, the people want... What do the people want? They want safety regulations, so they'll get them. And there are a bunch of people unemployed. Yeah, that's just happening. Not much we can do about that. Some of these factors are doing well, though, or at least well enough. And who knows, maybe once we take some of these countries into our sphere, things will go better for our people. And we're going to have to be increasing relations with the United States for a very long time for it to actually matter. That being said, we managed to become a great power, and I think that's not insignificant. Let's see. We will do another progressive tax rate sort of plot. And let's see. We don't really need to buy all of this electric gear, to be perfectly honest. Especially... Oh, what? And we're automating it already? Well, then I don't even know what's going on. Buying up stockpile. What do we have in our stockpile anyway? We have a ton of cotton, which, okay. Yeah, I don't know. I'm actually not sure why we're buying so much of it or why it's, you know, being paid for by the government. Grievous insults. Well, okay, a group of Confederate citizens who left the CSA some time ago on an expedition to Kokand, which is an interesting place to go, have been viciously refused entry to the country. It appears that Kokandi government has turned gradually to a policy of increasing isolationism, most likely in order to avoid the pains of modernizing their political, economic, and social institutions. This policy of the Kokandi government, obviously impairing the advances of Confederate trade, diplomacy, and missionary activities in the region, and must be considered an unjust restriction on international freedom of movement. Well, we'll tolerate and respect them, since that is kind of our deal. And I mean, you know, they do kind of have the right to say, no, don't come here and, you know, harass us or whatever. Meanwhile, Portugal and Egypt can be influenced and will be influenced. Although we're probably spreading our influence a little far. Let's see. Of the 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 countries we're influencing, we've been banned from 2 of them. And it looks like Bolivia is going to be the one that we managed to get into. Anti-minority agitation. The Confederate Fascist Party has embarked on a political propaganda campaign denouncing everything that they consider to be foreign influence on the CSA, particularly targeting minorities and immigrants. The party campaign appeals to Confederate xenophobia and agitates sotto voce for the expulsion of those immigrants from the Confederate state. Several leading intellectuals have denounced the campaign as inflammatory and expressed support for our national minorities. Wait, okay, so which campaign are we denouncing? Several leading intellectuals have denounced the campaign as inflammatory. Okay, so it's this campaign, the Confederate Fascist Party's campaign. We can denounce it, and then everyone... Whoa. Okay, so we would be denouncing the intellectuals, because we denounce the intellectual campaign, and it pisses off everyone who's a minority, and everyone who's not a minority becomes a lot more fascist. Or we express tacit support for the intellectuals, and people are less likely to be fascist. So we'll do that one, since, I mean, we are trying to get immigrants and all that. Also, I've been selecting the wrong decision every single time, and that's probably why my fascist party and the evil one is not doing so well. Debtor's prison, we've already answered this. We're going to consider not just putting people in debtor's prison forever, since, you know, arguably a bit messed up. Oh, and we were banned from Bolivia right before we went and spent our influence on them, which is slightly unfortunate. One of our ambassadors was insulted. We're going to not really stir the pot, since there's no great reason to, and keep making the Americans hate us a little less. Austria, what? Okay. Interesting. Fascinating. I've never seen that happen. In fact, you know, that's one of these moments where, screenshot. Might just put that on the subreddit, because that's kind of cool. So, yeah, neat. Neat. That's so weird. I guess they managed to get cores on these areas due to the Austrian-German population before they formed. Oh man, that's so fun. You know, that's one of those unintended little consequences. Alright, so that's cool. I wonder how they're going to do in time. I mean, okay, they're immediately being attacked by regular Austria-Hungary. I mean, understandably. You wouldn't really want a small offshoot country to basically say, hi, we are the legitimate, you know, entire nation. Yeah, so, short-lived. But what are you gonna do? Oh, we have stopped researching things for quite some time. Once again, just going back to naval techs, since that's really all that's left, other than the tech that just gives us detrimental things. And we obviously wouldn't want that. So we could build up a whole army, just another whole army. I'm not going to do that. We should probably keep our forces kind of close together, and definitely away from the American border. We're kind of, well, we're not really doing too well economically, so I don't want to risk anything. All these factories aren't really doing too well, and it seems like all these people are just going to be permanently in a state of unemployment. We're going to remove our focus right there, shift it over to clerks in Oklahoma, which seem to need some help. And yeah, so Virginia is just apparently going to be pretty unemployed for quite some time. At least there are a bunch of social programs. I guess really that's the flip side, is capitalism with a sort of welfare state just left on its own has no real incentive to get the government to help people, and so you just end up spending more and more money making sure they don't die while also not getting them to do anything helpful for society. And that's kind of where we're trapped right now, and that's not a really good way to live, because people kind of need to feel like they're doing something significant to not, you know, hate their lives. So it's a little unfortunate that we're trapped in a place where we can't, you know, help provide that. We can just kind of keep them from dying, but keep them in a sort of purgatory in a way. And we're actually not going to be a great power for very much longer, which is unfortunate. There's not really all that much we can do to maintain. I wonder who is going to be the new great power. It looks like it'll be the Spanish. Well, alright. It's not like we're really doing all that much with our great power status. People really want more healthcare, so we'll go ahead and give that to them. I guess we could build some naval vessels, but I really don't want to do that. We did manage to touch the sun for a little while, or however you want to describe that. We will drop our military funding even more. Italy's backing the Ottoman Empire in a crisis over Bosnia. I'm not going to support Bosnia. The Russian Empire is... Oh, wait, no. So I guess... I thought it was Bosnia. I could have sworn. Okay, so it's the Serbs in Bosnia. Okay. Well, best of luck, Serbs. Tax the poor even less. Same with the middle class. Alright, so the progressive tax rate seems to be doing fine. The middle class aren't really having the best time of it all. Let's not allow... Okay, another beer hall has opened in one of our provinces today, adding yet another notch to the province's reputation as a paradise for ramblers, gamblers, and drunkards alike. For every 100 citizens in the province, there is now a saloon, brothel, beer hall, or other institution of vice and sin. While spirits may serve to raise even the bleakest of moods, the long-term effects of overconsumption are not to be trifled with. Well, we're going to try to get them to stop that, since, you know, there's better things they could be doing. Which, you know, is just a stance. Whether or not that's correct, who's to say, but it certainly isn't the most wrong. Alright, so I'm predicting we're going to have another socialist victory, since the capitalists are really leaving quite a few people unemployed, and that's not really too indicative of success on their part, and we'll just try to do a better job of creating factories that'll actually work at successfully employing people. And although it'll be sad, we're going to have to close down a few of these higher-end factories and just get rid of them so new factories can be built. So I guess the question is, do we wait, or do we hold kind of snap elections? Now, the voters are mostly socialist, although enough of them are reactionary or fascist. I'm pretty sure they'll all vote in a block. Siam, we can influence you, although it's not going to matter in a moment. And we'll keep increasing relations with the United States proper, since that's just typically a good thing to do. We will still be good neighbors, as long as we're able. We just have to make sure that if they do pile on a whole bunch of troops on the border, that we are aware of it, so they don't kill us. Although they don't actually seem to be too eager to build up their army, which is great. We actually have the larger army of the two American republics, which isn't exactly the situation we would like to be in, but, you know. Oh, okay, and looks as though it's war on the continent, and I'm not sure if our British allies are actually going to be on the winning side. It looks deeply questionable. And no one's going to ally us. So, yeah. Oh, the British are just crossing over. The French are not in the war, which is a little unfortunate, because that means the Americans' ally is going to just kind of sit pretty and miss this, while our ally could very well lose their army. So, yeah. Let's be prepared. Caution is certainly the better part of valor, or however that saying goes. It'd be really awesome if we discovered military airplanes, and then we would just pump military airplanes out of pretty much everywhere we could. Our economy's not going to be doing too well, which, yeah, that's not great. We will go ahead and tax our people a little bit more, which is kind of unfortunate, since it's just, hey guys, the country's not doing too well, the economy's going poorly, let's tax you more. Okay, a fascist newspaper has begun circulating in one of our states. The paper Confederate Dawn carries fiery denunciations of everything between heaven and earth, including but certainly not limited to communists, socialists, liberals, conservatives, foreigners, minorities, women, homosexuals, capitalists, deviants, and criminals. While the paper carries a fair amount of vitriol, it does still manage to capitalize fairly well on several of the attitudes that are prevalent among fairly broad strata of our society, whatever that says about Confederate society. Well, we'll say it's read by the middle classes, in part because I don't think there are as many middle-class people as there are poor people, so it means less people will get too involved in that. The fascist march. Fascists have taken to the streets of one of our states to show in a show of force for the party and its various sub-organizations. Clad in their black and brown shirts, marching in military order through the streets, drums beating, the fascists are an intimidating sight to behold. Several members of our cabinet are suggesting that the presence of what effectively amounts to military units not under state control is becoming more and more of an issue, and are suggesting we outlaw paramilitary organizations. Yeah, we're definitely outlawing paramilitary organizations. Since, I mean, why would we want that? Alright, humiliate Russia, cut British Empire down to size. So that went poorly. Luckily it was quick, so the British probably didn't lose their army, although they did have to give up, I believe it's a quarter of their armed forces, which is in no way ideal. So we'll just have to be very careful to watch and make sure that the United States doesn't do anything crazy. And we'll keep just trying to go over the border and convince them that we're actually pretty swell dudes. The economy is really bouncing back up, so we can actually stop taxing the poor entirely and stop taxing the middle class nearly so much. The rich are really facing the brunt of this new tax policy, but you know, they're also not really doing their jobs of keeping everybody employed. Now it looks like Russia has went from losing a great war to intervening in another person's war. So we'll see if that's more successful for them. It looks like we're not falling out of great power status anymore, and that's pretty cool, since I would really love to get the benefits of it. Oh, you know what it is? Probably. Oh no, Spain did lose. I was thinking that what happened might have been that Spain still surpassed us, but Italy... Well, I mean, it wouldn't make sense for Italy to have fallen since they won that war. Italy and the forces of the status quo. Oh, we can get all these new technologies. Mutual funds is probably good, but we will focus first on limited access roads, then synthetic polymers. Roll into these commerce... Well, the one commerce tech we want, and then we'll get the rest of the army techs. And the idea with just piling up all of these soldiers here isn't so much that we're actually going to use them to fight, so much as it will just block American armies from rolling in through us like they typically want to. It seems like fairly soon they'll have more forces than we, well, they'll have more forces than we will. And that will probably get them to the point where they feel... What would the word be? They'll probably fairly quickly get to a point where they're confident enough in their ability to win a war against us. And that's really the dangerous point. We could build some armored units. I don't really think that that's super effective, since we already get pretty good defense bonuses on some of our troops. So we'll just keep building up forces like we've already been. Yeah, really, it would be tremendously great to get military aviation. Oh, it looks like nobody has it, though. So, okay. What do the people want? They really want good pensions. So, okay. They can have it. And we will attend the 7th Olympic Games, further increasing our relations with the United States. It might just be increasing the relations of... between you and all the bordering states that are already going. I think that makes some sense and explains it, because I don't think it would be the United States both times in a row. For one, that's just not how the Olympics operate. Even in this game, I'm fairly sure. So yeah, who knows? I wonder if you could have the Olympics if you somehow managed to conquer the world by, you know, by the stage of the game where the Olympics are hosted. I don't know if it's actually even possible to conquer the world by the stage of the game where the Olympics begin to get hosted. But I wonder if you cheated, if the event would still fire. I mean, it would probably fire once, Ah, it's kind of interesting. I could just look through the game files, and I might do that because, I don't know, it's kind of neat. Totally picking only one faith. That's just the option forever. Alright, and we're doing pretty well. Mexico's not having the best time. Oh, okay. What just happened? The USA dishonored their military alliance with France in a war against Ethiopia and Zanzibar. Alright, not the choice I would have made, but, you know, I guess they're free to do what they want. America being all perfidious. Alright, a statewide manhunt has been called in one of our states as police report that a convicted murderer has escaped from a local prison facility. While unsettling in itself, the news has also brought our nation's prison system to public spotlight, fueling a national debate on the issues of crime and punishment. Liberals argue that the escape merely serves as further indictment of the dilapidated and tragic state of our nation's prison system, while conservatives point to the natural constraints on the national budget and argue that we should not spend the better part of our money on what is arguably the worst part of our citizenry. Huh. Search high or search low? We'll search high. Not for any particular reason. Just I suppose it's less people to upset. Start this new research. Hopefully our capitalists will be doing well enough. Oh yeah, looks like they've already constructed all of those new roads. Renovate that church. France already won the war that broke apart their... Oh, no, I guess they are fighting Ethiopia still. Already nearly won the war that broke apart their alliance with the Americans. No protection rackets. And I am tempted to build a series of forts along the border. Although, I would rather just improve our relations with the United States. Try to make them be our friends. Oh, and France has forgiven the United States, so I guess congrats, guys. Arguably a good thing. These factories not really doing too hot. I guess the ones that are successful are at least succeeding decently well. They're not really bothering to increase the size of them, though, and that's a little annoying. We won't really worry about the free trade interventionism sort of thing. And another victory for the conservative and reactionary parties. So congrats, guys. Very close to letting the socialists back in office, but I guess since it isn't so much of a crisis, they're totally fine with just rampant unemployment in some of our states. And, you know, there's not really anything we can do about it, so no sense complaining. We'll just kind of take it as it goes. Alright, so yeah, things are going decently well. I mean, it would have been more fun if we could do this while also being socialist, since we would have been able to spend all of this time of peace and relative prosperity also managing our economy. Since we don't really have the opportunity to do that, though, I wouldn't say it was boring or anything. It's certainly less productive. We are maintaining a larger military than the United States, and that is almost certainly drastically important for not dying. And we would like to keep not dying for the rest of the game. Let's see, we are starting to build up our points again, so we'll just go increase relations with the US. No one else really likes us all that much, and that's pretty much always going to be the case. And we're not actually going to deal with any of those events that let us go harass all these various other nations. But, yeah, I think we have a very real chance of having this be successful for our people, in the sense that, you know, I think fewer as a percentage of our population is going to be poor compared to the other CSAs. Since, look at these, all these poor people are getting their luxury needs met, tons of craftsmen are, a bunch of the soldiers, and a ton of farmers, which arguably means we're paying the soldiers too much, but what are you going to do? Well, I mean, a lot of them are also just getting their life needs, so who really could say? And tons of farmers and craftsmen and soldiers are actually not doing too hot either. So, nah. What can you do? I guess we'll just keep funding everything and hope that our people are able to sustain themselves. Increase our relations in the Netherlands, and I just realized I have a weird flag because they're a communist dictatorship. Interesting. Interesting that there's a communist dictatorship with a series of colonies throughout the world. And I think I actually selected the wrong option, so we're going to increase opinion and not increase relations. Alright, now they're just cordial with us. They've been cordial for a while. I think they just keep, you know, kicking our people out of their country as they're trying to do that. But what are you gonna do? Alright. And let's see, Brazil we can influence. Oh, cool, we can actually add them to our sphere. So we'll proceed to do that. Fascist newspaper. Bam, middle classes, once again. So let's see if that actually helped. I mean, we're not really getting any more electric gear, and I think all of our factories that relied on rubber are already basically out of business. So I suppose at this point it's kind of a moot point. Although on the bright side, it seems like some of these factories have closed down, which means they will be able to build new factories. And hopefully our people will start to succeed again and live their Confederate dreams. Which in this instance isn't some weird reference to slavery, it's, you know, just kind of prosperity. And maybe healthcare at some point. But it doesn't seem like people care all that much at the moment. Alright, remember not to get market determined exchange rates because the market doesn't care. And we'll go ahead and get modern divisional structures, heavy armament, modern army doctrine, and then Great War experience. Pretty much in that order. Ooh. And we'll keep rich taxes up pretty high. We will drop taxes on the middle class a little. We can now build airplanes, which we've been hoping to be able to do for a very long time now. So immediately just disband that Dragoon. And all of these will be airplanes. Just everyone airplanes. And let's actually target army construction. Looks like the actual acquisition of aeroplanes is a very slow venture. And we have been trying to stockpile them. We'll actually just confirm max airplane purchases. Probably should have been doing that for a while. Didn't really think of it. So yeah, it'll be a while before these airplanes get into the field, or the skies, or what have you. Hopefully though, now that there's actually a set buyer, countries, maybe even our own, will produce airplanes, although it really doesn't seem like they're actually producing any at all. And, you know, that's obviously quite unfortunate. Hopefully, though, it will change in time. And we are decently prestigious, so as soon as other countries stop demanding as many aircraft, hopefully we'll be able to get some. Merchants harassed in Sweden, which is quite rude. The United States actually is one of the greatest producers of aircraft. How interesting. We'll keep making them like us a little bit more. We'll try to get them to have positive relations with us by the end of this episode, which I suppose is a slightly less climactic thing than the other CSAs have had to do at the end of their episodes. Oh, forward. Extra, grand strike in Richmond. Workers demand higher wages. Extra, grand strike. A socialist newspaper named Forward has been published in Richmond. It reports about various strikes, current news, socialist movements, and policy and politics both close to home and abroad. Well, interesting, I am sure. Go ahead and increase these relations. Oh man, we have about 20 seconds before we get to an hour. Is my computer quick enough that enough time will pass before we can improve these relations? Looks like it was. Alright, wonderful. With that, there's not really anything that we're really drastically working towards. The United States is basically the biggest producer of airplanes, which we're trying to get them to siphon over to our country so we can build airplanes to defend ourselves against an eventual American invasion. We'll get ourselves some good healthcare, so bam, look at that. We've achieved full healthcare reform. That's pretty cool. We'll get heavy armament, we'll start down that route. And yeah, so we're doing well. We're almost entirely literate. We're getting tons of research points. Our people are, you know, somewhat rural. The most people are in Atlanta, Georgia, of all places, and Richmond, Virginia, the capital, so that makes sense. Other than that, we're still pretty rural as a country. New York has 1.12 million people. Philadelphia, 764,000. So we're definitely a junior state in that regard. Number 9 in industry compared to the United States is number 2. And I imagine if we were to continue this into the Hearts of Iron era, we would probably not survive in that time. Although, who knows? It would be interesting. That would be a fun little thing. I mean, there's really no way that we wouldn't just be massively eclipsed. So what would have to happen is the Canadians would have to join us, and the British would have to dedicate a significant portion of their forces in that sort of scenario. And the United States is actually at parity with us in terms of military strength, right? Oh no, they're actually above. Who was that parity then? Was it the British? Am I making something up? I guess I'm making that up. Did I click on our own selves? Probably did. Alright, well, at any rate, thank you very much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. We lost our little socialist experiment, but we managed to jumpstart our economy, and that's good enough. Not really in Virginia and Alabama, so we kind of failed them. But, you know, things happen. We don't succeed everywhere. We'll just try to do as well as we can. We managed to improve these relations. We'll improve them one more time just because. Get those relations up. Alright, have a great day. Thank you again for watching.